Hey guys, I'm Keenan and this is the acid drip, and what we are now doing is we are moving on to the letter A. For those of you who are following me on Facebook right now, I recently made a post saying that I was going to try and post 2 videos per day. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do that. Today is April 6th. It's 11:52. There's definitely no way in fucking hell I'm going to get 2 videos done today. So I technically broke my promise, but for good reason. I was spending some time talking to a friend of mine who I haven't seen in a while, and also spending a bunch of time at work and just doing other stuff, and I went for a run and whatever. But anyway, with all that out of the way, tonight is one of the big nights for producing letters. This is the last letter I have to kind of redo. There were some issues with the shape design, and now I am in the process of correcting all of that. So what does that mean? Well, based off of, circumstance, I'm in a situation where I have most of my letters done, and I'm going to be in the next few weeks working on polishing the Illustrator vector based designs, and then we'll see if I can laser cut things. Okay, so where did we leave off last night? Last night we left off working on the Pharaoh head, so I stayed up all night finishing that draft. I will probably be doing the next draft of it in a couple of days, because this Wednesday my parents are going to start painting this room. So tonight is Monday, basically Tuesday. So today I am going to be finishing this drawing, scanning it up, throwing it on the computer, and then I will be doing a bunch of work in Illustrator, and then in a few days after the paint has dried and aired out and they're done with everything. And of course they have to throw tarps down on the floor and tape that up, and I'm going to be helping them with that. And we got to take the picture frames off the walls and move all the furniture and stuff. So there's going to be a ton of work that I'm helping them with. And then, of course, the painting itself, which I will be helping them with as well. So I'm not going to be able to redraw the Pharaoh head in time. It's just not possible. But what I am going to do is get this letter done. Excuse me. Get this letter done and kind of just move forward with things. So with all that out of the way, let's kind of just jump into this. I am going to listen to Cattle Decapitation, and I'm also going to listen to this Winter's... Okay, are you freaking out on me? Yes, you are freaking out on me. Come on, computer. There we go, freaking out on me. So Winter's SEO, I'm not really sure what the SEO is. He's a guy from England who does really cool battle reports. Again, I'm a huge 40K fan, and I'm building the terrain set and the kill team, Death Watch, Orcs, a little bit of Tau, and a little bit of Kroot. I don't know. Kill team looks like a really fun game. It also looks like a money pit. So right now I'm not buying any more kits. I am just building what I've got. God, excuse me, I'm tired. However, there might be one more terrain kit I pick up. There's a really good terrain set that I found online that's pretty cheap. Anyway, you hear that beeping? That's the coffee. So I was filling time while I was waiting for my coffee to finish boiling. I'm going to finish this little cup of coffee. Pour myself a nice fat pot of freshly brewed coffee and dive into this. So with all that crap out of the way, let's get into it. Sharpen your pencils often. There's no harm in working with a sharp pencil. So they're playing Titans in this version of 40K. It's kind of cool. It's Admech versus Eldar. That's a Warhound Titan, and that's pretty freaking cool. Those things are like $1,000 to buy. They're from Forge World. They're ridiculously expensive. They're fucking cool though. They just vaporize things that they shoot at. Game-wise, it's like as overkill as it gets. That's what 40K is all about, overkill. Oh, now here comes the Imperator Titan. Yeah, or the Reaver Titan. That's a Reaver, not an Imperator. It's a big ass fucking gun. But he's gonna try and snipe it with his tanks. This is why I like the battle reports. They're kind of fun. These units are too expensive for me to buy, but fucking cool to look at. Half an inch off, that's what she said. A fucking great line. Okay, that cup of coffee's empty. I'm doing the next one. Tired. I am tired. I am not gonna lie, I'm really tired. Looks like the computer froze. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, we're back. Computer's a little buggy, to say the least. Hey guys, after a really long break, I am back. Sorry about the distraction. I'm going to be getting back to work on this, and we are now listening to Cattle Decapitation because I really need to focus and not be distracted. Last night I bought this record, by the way, and to prove to you that I was not kidding about, what I was saying about how amazing they were, there is my order for Cattle Decapitation, right there. So I ordered all that shit last night, because their shit's good. I highly recommend you buy at least one of their CDs and support them, especially because they can't tour right now. Support a musician, buy a t-shirt, or buy a poster, whatever, or a CD, something. Anyway, it's not going to ship for a while because non-essential workers are essentially on furlough right now, but I'm not tripping about that. I'll get it when it gets here. Okay, let's get on to this again. Here we go, Cattle Decapitation. Very much in the realm of black metal right now. Arguably more progressive than Death Heaven, which is saying something. People give Death Heaven a lot of credit, and I don't disagree with giving them credit, but there's a lot of game changers in the metal scene right now. That's for sure. There's a lot of game changers in the metal scene right now. And this is one of them. This is a strong, decapitated vibe. So the reason why I'm not tracing this is because this draft has such a fundamentally different shape that the only way to really do this is to kind of eyeball it, and as I go to improvise over the shapes. That's the fucking riff right there. That's Vulturous. That's fucking sick. It's very black metal. Blackened Death. That's definitely what this is. Like, if there's one thing I can say, yes, I might be up all night right now, but this is, like, of all the records I could pick to be working to, this is probably one of the best ones I could pick. Okay, that fucking outline's done. Now I gotta anticipate where this is gonna... Fuck, how's that going? Okay, so if you're wondering what I'm doing is building a layer map, and a layer map is basically a series of overlaid drawings that allow you to sort of see how the different layers will interact with each other. So the goal of a layer map is to basically orient your work so you can flip through different drafts. So this is going to be the outline draft, and this is going to be something that I go over very quickly with a brush pen, like so. So the purpose of this brush pen is to just kind of get all the major points outlined and the rhythm of this kind of locked in. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a sort of Venn diagram effect where I'm going to be able to see where all of my drafts kind of overlap, where they coincide, and where they conflict. And then I'm going to be able to make an informed decision about all of my final designs in the letter based off of being able to compare the geometry of all these shapes, because I will be able to layer them. So the best way to think about it is when you're a little kid, they have those sort of peel away skeleton maps of the human body where you got the transparencies, and like at the very base level you have the skeleton, and the next transparency that fits over that shows you where all the organs are, and then there's one that goes on top of that which shows you how the muscles fit over it, and then there's one that shows you the upper layer of skin that goes over the muscles, and then there's another one that shows you the actual skin itself. And as you pull back the transparencies, you can see the various layers of human anatomy, and you can see, you know, what goes into the human body. And so the way I think of it is this is sort of an anatomical drawing. What I'm doing here right now is I'm trying to figure out the anatomy of this letter, because I've got some conflicting shapes, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. You can kind of already see right here where these two drafts don't match up. So like you can very clearly see these darker lines and see how this pencil line, which I'll go like this, very clearly this is further out than this, and it dips inward of this a little bit, but for the most part it follows the internal shape, which means that this lower part here is pretty much accurate all the way through, and the changes in consistency are kind of happening up in this area towards here where it gets a lot thicker. And what I'm trying to figure out is, you know, where is it consistent and where is it inconsistent, and then wherever it's inconsistent I have to make a sort of executive decision about, you know, which pattern am I going to use. Like clearly right here, this shape is lower, and I'll get to it in just a second. Clearly this point is lower than the one on the previous draft, and you can see, so here's the previous draft right here. and get my pencil. That's where the point is right here. And here's where the point is right there. Let me turn off the light. You can see right here, that's the dot, that dot right there is from the previous draft, and that's where those points are intersecting. And this one's here. And it just depends on how you're looking at it, but this is kind of like an invisible rectangle. This right here forms sort of a rectangle, which is kind of what I was trying to do, is create like a rectangle and then the offset sides branching into the leg and the offset sides here branching into it. So if you make the rectangle, you see in this sense, the leg is, or sorry, this would be the height and this would be the length. So the height here is shorter and the length here is longer if you use this point up here. Whereas down here, the height is taller and the length is a little bit shorter, but that shortness kind of goes very neatly into this angle. What I think I might do is use this point here because it better offsets this circle than the one down here, where this point is offset from here. Here, they kind of creates almost a near perfect diagonal. See how there's almost a diagonal going through it, which means that I think this might actually have to go a teeny bit lower, or maybe I push this one down a little bit, maybe more to here, something like that, because I know for a fact that this one's further out than this one. And you can see that this one is less swooped in, which is why I kind of drew this right here and made this note that says thinner, right? This part up here is kind of okay, and I like that shape, but down here, this needs to be thinner to sort of imply that that's a rectangular corner. So like, that's what I'm saying when I'm talking about like the geometry of the shape. Like I've been kind of like fucking around with this thing, and now it's getting to the point where I have to make a commitment and a very like sort of consistent decision about, you know, which geometry I'm going to use. And you know, that's where the layering becomes very valuable, and that's why there's so many drafts to this. It's because each time I change the geometry, the fundamental drawing changes. So if you have a drawing and you're just working on the interior, you're not really changing the geometry, the external geometry, but as soon as you change the external drawing, the interior changes. So that's the thing, the interior is determined by the exterior, and so it's more important to figure out what the exterior is going to do and where the main branches of the exterior are going to connect than to worry about interior filler details. It's just a matter of, you know, figuring out the spacing on the interior filler details, and you can, you know, sacrifice some details from previous drafts to create new details in the later drafts. But the things you cannot compromise on is the containing geometry that makes everything symmetrical and makes things line up. If that from the onset isn't properly aligned, your letters aren't going to have a rhythm to them, and they are not going to look consistent within themselves and across your font set. So the rhythm is the flow and the movement within the lines and the consistency of that movement, and it's about conceptualizing that. And the difficult part is you're trying to conceptualize that rhythm and flow across 26 drawings because there are 26 letters in the alphabet. So conceptually speaking, like whenever I'm drawing, I'm not just thinking about this letter, I'm thinking about 25 other letters that I have to make this consistently fit into, which is like kind of massive, which is why like a lot of it is drawing what I think looks good and then comparing it to what I have. And like certain letters are massaged more into place than others, and some letters are defining letters that kind of force their aesthetic onto other letters, and some letters are so radical that they need to be molded back into shape and into the font set. The A in this font set is really radical, and I want it to look radical because I want my 5 vowels to be each very much stylistically unique, because they're the vowels, they're the most important letters in the alphabet, technically the Y being also a vowel. So 6 vowels. It's really important to have those, have like a stylistic continuity such that they're all relatively speaking similar enough that they look like they're in the same font, but for them to be the most detailed and intricately designed because they're the letters that are going to most reoccurringly appear in your font set. And then, you know, primary font letters such as like N's, M's, S's, you know, really, really common letters that are consonant are also really important, but without any concessions, the most important letters are unconditionally the 6 vowels if you include Y. And those are the ones that you need to foremost have in mind when you are designing your font set, because they are going to define everything. And that's really where my head is at right now, is like, how do I best define my vowels? How do I make my vowels look like individualized figures? Because that's where you're going to get the most amount of value out of your drawing, because the vowels will appear in every single word you cast, and that's every word you typecast. So it's really important. They're the ones that really need the most amount of focus to really make your font stand out and look like an artistic statement, you know. So that's why I'm spending an obscene amount of time on this. I don't think I would spend this amount of time on a I don't know, like an L or something like that, or a J. I really don't think I would spend this amount of time redraft something. But out of all my vowels, I think this one's the most radical. You know, this one really has the most lean to it. The E is very intricate. The I is, my I is my least favorite of the vowels. There's just something about the spacing and design of it that isn't as quite, in my opinion, intense as the others. But this A is unconditionally my favorite, along with the E. The O is interesting. I did a lot of work on getting that more symmetrical. The U I haven't put enough effort into, but without a question of doubt, the A is my best vowel. And it's very unique. It has the most amount of lean out of all the letters, which means when it comes to kerning, which is the spacing between the letters, so when you increase the kerning, the letters have more space. So if you've ever looked at a newspaper and, you know, you've got a line where like the words are really spaced out apart and the words look kind of weird, that's because newspapers use the fill format when they use their text, when they're using their they call it pagination, pagination. Came out in the 90s. It was a sort of like catch-all phrase for software that's designed to be a text editor for newsprint. The best example I can give you of that is something like Adobe InDesign, which is used predominantly for things like that, making brochures and, you know, multi-page designs. Anyway, when you use newsprint, when you're making newsprint, you're using a pagination, whatever the fuck you want to call it, a text editor, a graphic text editor, which is not Word. Microsoft Word is not a graphic text editor. It's not even remotely close to being as layered and complicated as a graphic text editor. So don't think of it like, you know, oh, I'm just going to do this in Microsoft Word and look, I can make a fucking newspaper. It's a hell of a lot more complicated than that. When you're using a graphic text editor like InDesign, the most common way to do it is to do a fill across the column, and so the words end up spreading out. But if you want to balance that, you can alter the kerning on specific lines by selecting the word, by highlighting it, the word that's like all fucked up and spread out, and you can shrink its kerning to be actually lower than the rest of the amount for the entire article, and you can kind of squeeze other words back into that line so you don't get those weird fucked up spread out lines. But it's one of those like very subtle, more nuanced forms of editing, text editing, that most newspapers don't bother with because it's exceptionally time consuming to like individually stylize the kerning on specific lines and entire, you know, articles. When, you know, you have a newspaper with maybe 100 different articles in it, you can't just individually design the text for just one article on one page that might, you know, have a splash page on the front and jump to a back page. And, you know, it's one of those things that you really can't do in a daily newspaper setting or even a weekly newspaper setting. You know, it's really something that you do for like books and like specialized graphics and brochures, something where it's like, okay, I got 6 months to work on this thing, and you know, somebody else is writing the text and your job is to just edit the text and format the text. I mean, that's like an entire job unto itself, is just laying out text. So that's kerning and that's spacing. And so like now that you have an understanding of what kerning and spacing is and like how invaluable it is in newsprint and other forms of print, this letter, because of its lean, because it's angled, it's going to have a unique kerning. And so like that's kind of the way to think of it, is like there's going to be a kerning to this where it has unique spacing. And when you see the letter A, other letters are going to be offset around it according to the unique kerning to this letter A, because it has a lean. So traditionally you have a measuring format for how big a font is. So for example, the letter L, lowercase l, is considered a half character because it's just a stroke. So it's a half character. A full character would be like the letter N, a lowercase n, and then a 1.5 character would be an M. So just to give you an idea, an M, full uppercase, you know, like the McDonald's arches. Think of the McDonald's arches in your mind. That's the most commonplace M I can, you know, put in your head as a graphic image. That is 1.5 characters. In terms of spacing, the letter A is traditionally considered a 1 character spaced graphic. But in this case, because it has lean, I would argue that this letter A is a 1.5, possibly a 1.25. 1.25s are things like Q's, where the circular shape is the same size as an O, and that's a full single unit. And then the dash, the little dash at the end, is a quarter. And quarters are not cannot conventionally considered in kerning. You have to have a specialized font where you have 0.5, 1, 1.25, and 1.5. Usually it's just 0.5, 1, and then 1.5. Usually that's how it is. Or sometimes you'll see 0.75, 1, and then 0.5. But that's neither here nor there. Basically, the 0.75 and the 0.5 are equivalents, roughly speaking. So when you see a 1.25, it's because they're counting like the dash at the bottom of a Q, or like the stroke on a J, or the stroke on a capital L, or like, what's another example of that? I don't know. Those are the ones that come off the top of my head. You can have tildes that are like enye's and stuff. Sometimes that can change the spacing on a word. There's little accent marks and stuff that can change the spacing. So I would say that this is at least a 1.25. It's not quite a 1.5. It's smaller than an M. It's definitely smaller than an M. I would not give the same amount of space to this as an M, but it's definitely bigger than like a capital letter N, which is a full 1 unit character. And that's because of the lean. You know, if I were to place this vertically on a sheet of paper, it would actually be very tall, and it would be taller than all the other characters. So one of the things about this that gives it consistency is that I've used the same size piece of paper for all my drawings. So as long as everything is relatively within this frame sheet of paper, I know that they're all going to be roughly scaled. And if it's smaller than this, if I draw a letter that's smaller than this boundary, I know that I can like kind of stretch it upwards to the size of an 8.5 by 11, and it will relatively, in terms of scaling, compared to the other letters I've drawn. So just having a matte format where everything is on the same size sheet of paper, and that you are able to understand the value of kerning and what spacing is going to occur when you actually print these letters and make them as letter prints, will help you understand the flow of your font. And if you have that in mind when you are designing your capital letters, which is what I'm doing, you can do really eccentric things to give them unique kerning, and you can do very eccentric things with, in addition to capital letters, capital vowels, which should be the most eccentric. So capital vowels being the most, regular capital letters, and then lowercase letters should be the most plain face, because you are going to read more lowercase letters than you are going to read caps. And that's just kind of like conventionally how it is. And if you have a shitload of letters that are super intricate, it's just going to be too taxing to read. But this is really good for a drop cap and for like headlines, which is what I'm using it for. And that's why I'm taking this time to do extra consideration for it. So I know that it was like a bit of a fucking rant when I was supposed to like, you know, hammer out this outline, but I was thinking in my mind, and then I realized, you know, I should probably try and share some of my logic and thought process with you so that maybe, you know, some of what I'm saying can explain like why I'm going through all this effort, and you don't think I'm just some crazy person who's obsessing over details needlessly. Because there is like a logic, a train of thought to doing it this way. It's just fucking time consuming, and it's fucking 3:54 in the morning, and I'm listening to cattle contapitation, and I'm fucking wired off of coffee, and I have work at fucking 9 in the morning tomorrow, and I have to be up at 8 a.m. to do it, and I'm probably gonna sleep 3 fucking hours before going to work, but it's fucking shit. I should have done this a while ago. It doesn't fucking matter. All right, I gotta get back to work. So see, now I can flip this over it like so. Or, I mean, relatively speaking, of course, I gotta tear that piece off. Now I can flip them back and forth. Yeah, now I can. So see, now I can kind of look at the outline that I have and kind of, okay, so. Here is my T angle. I'm not going to be using the T on it, but I'm just kind of thinking about this, kind of like so. Okay, that part's fixed. And the fucking computer froze while I was doing that. Basically, I was using the straight edge to line this point up with here. Here. So what I want to kind of do is kind of carve this out like so. Now this point lines up with this point, lines up with this point. Although this point's kind of not diagonal to them. Can I actually to pull that off? Not if I really fucking, not unless I really fucking warp this. So if I go like that, oh fuck, that's too out there. I mean, it's possible that I move this angle down. Okay, what happens if I do that? Winters is a really fucking good channel. This is a really good 40K channel. Same thing with Glacial Geek. Check out their stuff if you're interested in 40K. Oh, this guy's awesome. He plays Gene Stealer Cults. I love this guy. He's actually a really good player. This guy right here, he's fucking great. Gene Stealer Cults is really fucking hard to play, and that guy's a good pilot. Whip it out on the fucking table. Oh my god, the fucking innuendos. Fucking whip it out on the table. Who the fuck says that shit? Fucking winners. That guy's fucking funny. Fuck, it's 5 a.m. I didn't finish this drawing tonight like I had planned to. I got distracted halfway through the night. But I did a bunch of drafting on this, and it's really close to being what it needs to be. It's just not there, though. It's 5 a.m. I gotta get up at 8. I'm gonna get 3 hours of sleep and go to work tomorrow, and then I'm gonna end up sleeping all day and probably not publishing anything, which sucks. I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing more soon. Take care. Bye. This is Keen Fry, and you're watching The Acid Drip.